everybody. Welcome to the Happiness Now Network. I am super, actually beyond excited to have John Verrico with me today. He's someone I met, I've been very fascinated with. We're co-authors in this amazing book, The Art of Connection. We've both been in it. Well, I've been in it almost 2 years. I think you've been in it. What?
Yeah, I did just finished my third edition is the gratitude book, and then we're going into the fourth edition together.
Yay, this is super exciting. But John has 42 years experience as a communications and leadership expert. But believe it or not, that wasn't the thing that fascinated me. I was reading his bio. He has this huge eclectic past, from being stand-up comic, disco dancer, short order cook. I mean, amazing, amazing stuff. But the thing that really excited me the most, we both have this love of classic monsters, and I didn't know that about you. And it's what you based the company you founded, Share Your Fire, and your torch program. I love I'm going to say the word, not anagram,
Acronym.
acronym for torch. So I wanted to start with that. I'm so excited to have you here, and just welcome. And
Thank you, SueZee. It's always great when we have a chance to chat, and we really haven't had a chance to have an in-depth discussion. So I was delighted when you asked me to be on your show.
And after reading this bio, I just have to jump right into it, because it started out, and I can relate to this so much, because you were a small kid, you were bullied, and you found solace in classic monsters. And it really was your whole inspiration for then later on Light Your Fire and then the torch. So tell me how that love of classic monsters got you here, because it's amazing to me.
So it's a long and weird journey. So yes, I was a little kid. I was only 5'3", weighed 110 pounds when I graduated high school at the age of 18. So I was a little guy. And so I was picked on, by the bullies, and sometimes pretty traumatically. And I realized that, nobody should be made to feel that way. No matter what you're going through in life, you're not less than others. And so, I used to read comic books, and a lot of people were kids like me, who, especially bullied kids, were inspired by comic books. But in reality, we knew that superpowers probably weren't really a thing, right? So what I also found was I was fascinated with monster movies, and I didn't realize immediately why. But what dawned on me was, in these classic monster movies, no matter how big and bad and nasty the monster was, the little guy won. And so in my mind, the bullies were my monsters.
Oh.
And I knew that I could come out on top if I just, looked at things differently, if I was a little bit more innovative. I'm not talking about, tripping them up or setting booby traps for them or anything crazy like that, but just, finding and understanding the fact that, this is not forever, and just through innovation and thinking differently and maybe a little teamwork, we can defeat any monster that's out there. And if you think about it, in those old classic monster movies and in every horror movie, what is the thing that we fear? Most of the things that we fear are in the darkness.
Yes.
Right? The bad guys always do stuff in the darkness.
Yes.
Not in the light of day. And in the classic monster movies, what did they do when they went after the monsters? They got a bunch of torches. And everybody, seems to think that the torch was because of the fire and the burning. But it really wasn't. It was about the light. You brought the torches so you could light the way, so you could see the monster. And the monster was afraid of the light, so the monster would run away. So a well-lit torch was your principal weapon.
I love this so much.
And so over the years, like I said, I realized that, what we need is to shine light on the darkness. And when we shine light and we can see what we're dealing with, and we get a better understanding for what we're dealing with, then we know what to do. Right? That light helps us to see more clearly and realize that things are not as dark and terrifying as they seem. So Share Your Fire was founded on the principle that, my light is only so bright. We add your light and that person's light and that person's light, the more light that comes together, the broader our spread of light and less darkness.
Beautiful.
Now I'll play with the acronym.
Yes.
because you mentioned the
Love it.
acronym. So
Watch.
so torch is my acronym, and what it stands for are the elements that we need in order to keep our motivational fire going, as well as allowing those around us to also keep their fire burning. And those elements are trust, opportunity, respect, communication, and humanity.
Oh,
So when we trust each other and we give each other equal opportunity to succeed, and we respect each other as individuals, and we communicate with each other openly instead of hiding things or lying about things, but open, honest communication, and then remembering most of all is that the other person and the people around us are also human beings that have trials and tribulations and things going on in their life that you have no idea about. And so you just have to have a little bit more compassion, and understanding that humanity piece is probably the key of all of it. But when we have trust, opportunity, respect, communication, and humanity, our inner torch burns, our motivational fire burns, and then we can share that fire with others.
I love it. Now, you've been doing this 42 years and you did this with the military. When did you develop the torch program? Was it during those years?
No, actually, the torch came out probably about 25 years ago. I was in the Navy for almost 25 years, and between active and reserve. And in the Navy, I was a Navy journalist and I was a public affairs guy. And what I was doing, my principal role was to help people tell their story.
Mhm.
So getting the engineer or the scientist or the commanding officer or the bosun mate or the guy in the boiler room to be able to feel the pride in what they do and to tell the world about the coolness of their job
Oh,
and the impact that they're able to make. So I would train people to speak to reporters. I would help them write a story. I would help them, like the commanding officer, give a speech or anything like that. The entire time, what I was doing was helping people to communicate better. And as I progressed, I realized that I was also, without realizing it, subtly helping them become better leaders and also building up their own personal and professional resilience and pride.
oh, I love
And
it.
so in that role is where I started to realize what I was subtly doing was I was lighting their fire.
Oh, now did you
And
do a
and
book
when
on
I
that? I'm sorry.
no, I was going to say, and when I left the Navy, I went into government communications, working in government agencies, because I realized I did not want to make my fire, put my fire out there just so that some CEO could make more money. So I did not wind up working in corporate America. I wanted to be someplace where I had a purpose and I can serve. And so I worked in government agencies, helping to promote the good work of government, not the politics, by the way.
Okay, good. That would be tricky for
Did
you.
not work for politicians. Not, well, nobody hates politics more than I do, and I spent 42 years trying to combat the insanity of politics by promoting the good work that the average everyday government worker who is slaving and working hard to do a job that they care about, and the services that they provide to the communities that they serve.
And the thing that popped into my mind when you were talking about having them tell their stories, have you ever considered, I don't, you probably can't find the same ones they interviewed, but just doing a book and getting like all the military people to tell their stories and making a compilation book with it? Because I know there was so many, like when my dad was in World War II, and about 10 years ago, all the schools were having people interview like their parents and their grandparents, because the World War II veterans were dying off and they wanted to
Yes.
tell stories. So I was wondering if you did something like that, you had that in the works, or
You know what? I've not done that. I can probably compile stuff that I had amassed over the years,
yeah, that would be
but
fast.
I think that would be a great idea. I'd love to go back. That's a brilliant idea. Thank you. I'm going to go back and reach out to some of my old shipmates and see if we could tell our stories about being on board the USS Butte.
Yes, that would be so cool. Like it just like popping like, oh, I hope he does that.
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea. Thank you.
That's what I'm here for. Now, I have to talk about the eclectic past because you had this military career, right, for 42 years. But first of all, you must have started like when you were two, because you also were a stand-up comic, a disco
when
dancer.
I was two.
But how did you like, because you had 42 years there, but then you had this other, leading up to that. So how many years did you spend doing like, disco dance instructor, stand-up comic?
Oh goodness. Well, there was
I
actually so much else.
want
So
to hear them. I want to hear them all.
when I so I'll try to do somewhat of a chronology without like going into a complete detailed list. But
Okay.
when I graduated high school, like most kids, a lot of boys were going into wood shop and auto shop and even metal shop. I did electronics shop.
Cool.
And it was like one of the first high schools in my region to even offer an electronics shop. And I got really interested in it. And I said, "This is really cool. So I want to go to school, and learn electrical engineering, and I'm going to get into this field." And so I went to college for electrical engineering, and I worked for 2 years as an electronics technician, and I did really well at the work, but I was bored to tears.
Oh.
And the element that I found that I was doing was I was usually like an assembly line technician, which meant that when things came off of the assembly line where they were producing electronic devices, something was wrong with them or they didn't test properly, they'd come to my shop to try to figure out and analyze the problems. And I loved that analytical problem solving thing. I love puzzles. But when I found a solution, I quickly turned around and started training my fellows to find those things or what to look for in order to figure out these kinds of problems. And I enjoyed the training and writing training manuals even more than I enjoyed the actual work.
Ah.
So I said, you know what? I've always liked to write. I think I'm going to go into writing and I'm going to go back to school and be a journalist. And so while I went back to school, I needed to support myself. So I was taking all kinds of jobs, everything from a janitor. I was a short order cook, working making pizzas
Oh.
and cheesesteak sandwiches and veal parmesan in this little restaurant. Um, and I was trying all kinds. I mean, I sold men's clothing. I kind of did a bunch of different stuff. But then, and like I said, I was still going to school at the time and going to school for journalism. And I took a bartending job. So now I'm in that scenario. Well, also I'm in the discos because it's the 70s. And I'm watching all of these, guys getting all the dates because they could dance. And I'm this little wormy, skinny guy. I'm like, and I couldn't dance. And I said, I could get the dates if I could dance. So I was watching all of this and I didn't have, I have to tell you, at this point in my life, I did not have a lot of confidence.
No.
I was still, riding on that mental wave of, you're less than others, you're not fit to do stuff because I was that little kid who was bullied.
Hmm.
And when I go to the discos and I'd ask somebody to dance, they'd look at me like, "Go away, pipsqueak."
Oh.
So so none of that. I hung out with a really good looking guy because he would get all the girls. And there was always like, an extra girl at the table, and maybe I could convince them to dance. So I was determined to become a good dancer. And I would watch American Bandstand and Soul Train and all those shows. And I'd practice moves at home with a chair or whatever.
Oh.
And so then finally I got, to a point where I thought I was okay. And I started asking more people to dance. And like I said, every once in a while, somebody would say, sure, why not? And I get out there and I'd bust out some moves, and all of a sudden other people are going, hey, that was cool. How'd you do that? And so then I started teaching other people how to do this. And then I kind of advanced, and then I started teaching competition disco.
Wow.
And then so at this point, now I started to get a little bit more confidence. And I was working also part-time as a roadie with a band. And in between the sets, I would jump up on the stage, grab the microphone, and do a comedy sketch.
How did you end up? Were you just like a natural comic, or did you study stuff, or you just got up there and?
So there was a comedian who used to perform in our area, and we would go see him. And my friends and I, heckled him a little bit from the stage, from the audience. We didn't get rude. We didn't try to take over the show. We just threw a couple of comments out, which he responded to nicely, and we were all professional with each other. And after the show, he came over and said, "Hey, that was okay. Don't get crazy. Don't take over. Don't get nasty. But if you want to keep up that level of stuff, that's okay. If the crowd is starting to die and, you want to help perk it up a little bit with that, that's all right. You could do that. Okay, cool." So we started doing that every show. And then the manager thought we were part of the show, so we let us in for free.
Oh, wow.
And then one day, Lou he had to leave the building for something in between his first and second sets, and he had a fender bender.
Oh,
And so the manager came over to the table and said, "Okay, guys, who goes up when Lou's not here?" And my friends went, "John does." Well, we knew his routine, so I got up and I did his second act. And my
oh,
friends, I mean, normally your posse will tear you up, right? They will they'll rip you apart. They'll just, you know, I thought for sure they were gonna, really heckle me to death, but they were good and they let me do the thing. And I did it and I got some laughs and I was like, that was pretty cool. And so I decided to, modify and write my own material and give it a shot in between sets of the band that I was a roadie for. And so I did that for about a year in 79. And then I got up enough nerve to do some musical theater and kind of tried a bunch of different things.
so you
But
sing?
here's the problem.
Okay.
I was so much doing all this stuff in the nights, tending bar, roadie with the band, stand-up comedy, disco, dancing. I couldn't get up in the morning.
Oh,
Now, remember, I was still going to school for journalism, and I went out and tried to get a job, and I got, I was doing some freelance stuff, and it was getting picked up, but I wasn't reliable because
mm.
I couldn't get up in the morning. I was constantly late to things, constantly. I'd show up and the news was over. It was history by the time I got there. So I said, man, I need to get some discipline in my life. And my kid brother said, I'm thinking about joining the military. Why don't you come with me? You need to straighten out your butt. So I said, you know what? That might be a good idea. Well, I didn't want to get shot at or crawl through the mud. So Army and Marine Corps were not on my list. I have a fear of heights, so no Air Force for me. And I said, well, I do know how to swim, so let's try the Navy.
Good
And
choice.
that's how I wound up in the Navy. My plan was to join the Navy as a Navy journalist and to go out for a couple of years and do some work and get some experience and then come back. I would have the discipline to get up in the morning. I would have, a good 4 or 5 years of solid experience as a journalist. And so everybody would want to hire me. That was my plan.
Okay.
I wound up liking what I was doing in the Navy. And, when you talk about eclectic, a Navy journalist is not what you think.
Okay, tell
I
me.
thought I thought I was going to be writing like, a base paper or something like that, and maybe doing the broadcast on the ship. So I was a staff of one. I was running 2 TV stations and 2 radio stations and doing all the programming. I did an evening newscast every night. I did a shipboard news sheet that went out on the mess decks in the morning. So everybody had the news when they got up in the morning. So I was up early doing that. And then I would do a monthly newsletter that would go home to the families and the communities in our home port. I would reach out and send out press releases to the media. I would do handle all the media inquiries. I would coordinate interviews, which goes back to the story where it started off, coordinate interviews with our Navy, shipmates. Was writing speeches for the commanding officer. When the ship pulled into port, I put on my community relations hat and I became a tour guide and all these other kinds of things and coordinated speaking engagements for, people on board the ship to go out and talk to the community. I'm missing something. Oh, and I was the ship's photographer and I handled fan mail.
Oh my God.
So I did like a zillion things and I was a staff of one. And I
Wow.
did that for 5 years.
Wow. No wonder why you're an expert.
And then I went to a shore command, and there I was doing a quarterly magazine. I was solo production on that. Writer, editor, layout, design, and production and distribution of a 60-page quarterly magazine that went out to the entire Navy and Marine Corps. Um, and it's just, I was constantly doing multiple things. And so I realized when I was leaving the Navy, I couldn't just go out there and work for a company and do one kind of thing. And also, as a journalist, I didn't want to just go and work for a newspaper or a TV station, because even though every news story would be different, the type of work would be the same every day. So I wound up working in government. I wound up finding the jobs in government where I could apply all of my skills at different times. So I worked in government public affairs, and because of my background with television and radio, I knew what they needed in order to get good stories, what the reporters needed, and I knew how to find good stories within my organization in order to get those stories out there. And I could help when things went awry, and I could promote things, that were going well, and all that kind of good stuff. And so I wound up just staying in that career, until, like I said, I retired, like you said, retired after 42 years of combined military government service.
Did your brother stay? What about your brother? How did he make out?
He never went in the Navy.
So he never joined anything?
He's still laughing to this day. I have to, you know,
Well, but he look what he did for your life, though. That's amazing.
exactly what he did. He did a great thing for my life. He got me straightened out big time. I found my passion in my career that way. But he's still laughing. So what happened was we were signing up. We both signed up to join the Navy. My brother was a little bit overweight, and so he had to lose a little bit. And there was a delay before the journalism school was going to open. So we said, okay, that'll give him time to lose weight, and we can still go in together, because my school wasn't available, and he had to slim up. So we said, okay, we can still time all of this. Well, they called and said, hey, we have an opening at the journalism school, and you can leave sooner. And my brother said, go ahead, I'll meet you in the fleet. So I took the opportunity and I joined. And then he kicked back and went,
Oh, he really had no intention all along of joining, or?
I don't know. I think he was really considering it, but then he changed his mind. I think he saw what I went through at boot camp, and he was like, nah.
Oh, tell me about boot camp.
It's traditional stuff. They said, hey, you got to go out and run. I'm like, why do I have to run? They go, you got to run. You got to run a mile and a half. What do you mean I got to run a mile and a half? Ships aren't that long.
For the ship, yeah.
Why do I need to run a mile and a half? I'm not a runner.
Oh,
I'm a short little guy with short little legs. I grew up in Brooklyn, right? Running was invented to catch something or run away from it. It wasn't designed for going distance.
oh.
I never understood the distance running thing, and it just cracked me up. I was like, no, I'm not gonna run and do all these exercises. What are you, crazy? But yeah, of course I had to.
Oh, wow.
And then, you see I have a beard, and I've always had, heavy facial hair. Well, in the military, in order to pass those boot camp inspections, I had to shave 3, 4, 5 times a day.
Oh, that's horrible.
We had a dress whites inspection, and the commanding the company commander sent me back to shave 7 times.
But how did you have time to shave? Because they keep you busy.
Oh yeah, they do.
I don't understand how you would have time to shave.
No, because in the morning we're getting ready for that inspection, and what they would do, you kept your ID card in your shirt pocket, right? And so when you came out and you were all shaved and groomed and getting ready to put on your uniform, they would come around and they would take your ID card out of your pocket and they would rub it against your face. And if they could hear scrape, scrape, get back in there and shave closer.
Crazy. I don't get that.
So after 7 shaves, I looked like I ran into Freddy Krueger.
Oh, you all cut up, right?
I was bleeding everywhere.
Oh.
And the company commander had me stand up on the chair, and he said, look, everybody, take a look at Verrico right here. This is how you know you shaved close enough when you're bleeding.
Oh.
So as it turned out, I failed the inspection anyway.
Oh, why? Open wounds?
Yes, I bled on my uniform. I finally got all the bleeding to stop, and carefully put my dress whites on so that I didn't get anything on it, and kept cleaning up and touching up, and finally got the bleeding to stop. And we went out and stood outside in the hot sun
And
and started sweating. And as I'm sweating,
blood came out.
some of the wounds reopened, and there
Oh,
was the inspecting officer was walking, he's inspecting the person over here and then going to the next person, and he looked over and he saw this trickle of blood just starting to come down my cheek, and he slowed down and waited
but
so that by the time he got to me it would drip and hit my clothes. If he had kept his regular pace, it wouldn't have dripped yet.
terrible.
Yep. So I wound up failing the inspection.
Oh, so let me guess, out of all the classic monsters, the Wolfman's your favorite?
Wolfman is definitely one of my favorites because of the fuzzy face. Yes.
You can relate, you feel his pain.
You know what? Even when I was in the Navy Reserve, first of all, when I first joined the Navy, beards were allowed.
Oh,
That's how long ago it was. Um, and then they realized that a gas mask will not seal on a beard. So,
oh, that makes sense then.
and all
Okay.
the other services kind of knew that already. So the Navy was a little behind the times, and so I had to shave off my a beard. Um, but when I went in the reserves and I didn't have to show up for Navy stuff except for once a month, I actually would grow my beard in between. In
Oh, wow.
between I would grow the beard in just a few days. And if some of my shipmates, I might run into somebody in between the drill weekends,
They didn't
and
recognize
they
it.
would see me and they were like, "Where'd all that come from? Didn't I just see you?" Yeah.
Was it a,
When I was active duty in the Navy, if I wanted to leave the ship, you have to be inspection ready. And I would have to go and shave 3 times a day just in order to be able to leave the ship if we were going on liberty somewhere.
oh man, that's
So I
crazy.
definitely relate to the Wolfman. There's no doubt about that. But my kid brother and I, we look alike. He's got 2 daughters, and when they were babies, now my brother, who's younger, is actually going bald.
No.
So I was a darker, hairier, scary version of dad. And when I would come into the room, the babies would shriek. They were terrified of me. They're like, "What
Oh,
happened to my daddy?"
it's a whole
So they
lot.
started. So my brother would pick them up, and especially Victoria. He'd pick her up, and he'd take her hand and touch my face and see fuzzy, fuzzy. So I am known now as Uncle Fuzzy.
Oh,
And I have been Uncle Fuzzy for 25 years, and all of my friends' kids call me Uncle Fuzzy. Yeah, everybody's kids call me Uncle Fuzzy.
that's adorable. And our half an hour went already. That went too fast.
Isn't that
But
amazing how
yeah,
quickly time goes? That's because I don't shut up.
I love it. I love it. So I wish we could talk 3 more hours. But we're gonna go to Q&A in a little bit. But I always ask, in case some people can't make it to Q&A, I always tell everyone being cause is the Happiness Now Network. We have this like little treasure chest of happiness tools. And I always ask each guest to contribute to the treasure chest of what their happy go-to tool is. So do you have a little secret tool that you use if you're maybe like having a bad day or something that just keeps you happy all the time? Some little trick or a little fun thing that you love doing?
I always like to find things to laugh about. And I have learned that laughter is the thing that'll help me find that light in the darkness, right? If you think about it, you go to a funeral, as sad and as tragic an event that is, once you start telling funny stories, like remember when grandma did that, or
Yeah.
remember when mom did this, and you can laugh, that actually helps in your healing and being cathartic. So one of the things that I did is I had in my office um, a teddy bear, and let's get this here, and this is my cute little teddy bear,
Oh,
and it would sit there on the corner of my desk so people could see it when they came into the room. And then if I was having a bad day, if things were going awry, the teddy bear would change.
I love that.
This is my werewolf teddy bear.
Where did you get
And
him? I want one.
and people would react to this so well that it helped to make me laugh, and it would lighten my own day just by getting other people to chuckle and laugh. So
Oh,
laughter is my go-to.
I love it. Mine too. Love it, love it, love
By
it.
the way, these were on the market only a brief period of time, and then the kids found them too scary, so they
Oh,
took them off the market. But they're out there. I forget what they're called.
Scare Bears.
They're called Beastie Bears.
I would call them Scare Bears.
Yeah, they were made by Hasbro, and this is back in '91
Oh, I
when they
love
came
it.
out.
Love it. And that's a great thing to wrap on. Put his face right up there, and then we'll close. Guys, thank you so much for being with us at the Happiness Now Network. And John, this was so great. I can't wait to go to Q&A now. You know why? Because I want to talk about monsters.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that is so cool.
It's still in the box, this one.
I
So,
have that model.
do you?
I do. I haven't built it yet.
I love the creature from the Black Lagoon. So, guys, if you are also fellow classic monster fans, I'm going to ask him a bunch of questions about, and I want to see some of his classic monsters. So, I'm just going to end the recording here. We're going to come right back in 2 minutes. And John, thank you so much. And thank you guys for being here. Mwah. See you in 2.
Love it.
I can't wait to talk about this.